You know, in so many rural communities, there are these critical infrastructure projects. We're talking roads, bridges, all the things people rely on every single day that are just stuck. Well, today, we're going to unlock a really powerful financial tool that's designed to break that exact logjam and finally get these things built. So if you're a public official or a planner in a rural area, this question probably hits pretty close to home, right? You've got that bridge that desperately needs replacing, or a road that needs widening, but the path from the plan to actual pavement feels blocked by this impossible funding puzzle.
You know, this problem is so common it actually has a name. We call it the rural funding gap. So let's take a second and break down the very specific challenges that make financing these kinds of projects so difficult.
And here's the heart of the problem. Rural projects are, by nature, often smaller, which makes them kind of less attractive for those huge federal loans. They also might not generate any revenue on their own. You're not putting a toll on a small county road, right? And to top it all off, they're all competing for the exact same, very limited pool of grant money. It's just a really tough spot to be in.
Okay, so just to be clear, what are we even talking about when we say rural? Well, for this particular tool, we're using the federal definition. We're talking about any project that's outside of those major metropolitan areas, so in counties, smaller communities, and those regional corridors all across the country.
So with all those challenges stacked against you, how do you break the logjam? Well, there's an increasingly popular solution that acts as a kind of financial accelerator. Let's talk about the State Infrastructure Bank, or SIB for short.
The easiest way to think about a SIB is like a state's own dedicated bank just for transportation. Its whole job is to provide loans and other kinds of credit to help get projects off the ground. But what we're about to dig into is a newer, kind of supercharged version of this idea, one that's specifically designed to tackle that rural funding gap.
And this is where it gets really interesting. A state can get one big, low-cost loan from the federal TIFIA program. That stands for the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. Then it uses that money to create a dedicated rural projects fund right inside its SIB. It's basically a fund built from the ground up to solve those unique rural financing problems.
So you might be wondering, how does one huge federal loan actually get to all these different small communities? Well, the process is actually surprisingly smart. Let's follow the money.
Okay, let's walk through this. Step 1, the federal TIFIA program makes one single large loan to the state's SIB. Step 2, the SIB turns around and uses that chunk of money to fill up its rural projects fund. And finally, from that fund, the SIB makes lots of smaller loans directly to the local communities that really need them. It's a fantastic distribution model.
All right, so why go through all this trouble? Because what it does is create 4 massive advantages for rural communities. Honestly, this is the core of why this tool is such a game changer.
First up, and this is a huge one for literally any budget, the cost of borrowing the money.
I mean, just look at this. Instead of paying typical, often changing market rates, these loans are fixed at half of the U.S. Treasury rate. For a small community, the amount of money you save over the life of a project, it's just absolutely enormous.
Okay, advantage number 2. This one directly tackles that problem we mentioned earlier about project size. So here's the key insight. The federal government isn't trying to manage a tiny little loan to a single small town. It's just not efficient. Instead, it makes one larger, more efficient loan, somewhere between $10 and $100 million, to the SIB. The SIB then acts as the middleman, breaking that big loan up to fund several smaller but equally vital community projects.
Now let's get to the third advantage. And this one might just be the most impactful of them all. It's all about how much of the actual project cost can be covered.
This chart just says it all, doesn't it? If a rural project somehow managed to get a TIFIA loan directly from the feds, it could only cover up to 49% of the cost. But if you route that same money through a state infrastructure bank, the loan that comes out the other side can cover up to 80% of project costs. That is a massive leap that suddenly makes projects that were impossible completely possible.
And finally, advantage number 4 is all about making the whole process simpler and cheaper. This is huge for smaller borrowers who, don't have these giant administrative teams.
So for SIBs that are capitalized with under $75 million, those federal advisory fees, they can often just be waived entirely. Gone. Plus, the SIB only needs a credit opinion from a single rating agency, not 2 or 3. This slashes the exact kind of red tape and upfront costs that can totally sink a project before it even starts.
Okay, so we have this incredibly powerful loan tool. But let's be real, funding is always a puzzle, right? You're pulling pieces from all over. So how does this SIB loan fit in to complete the picture? This is really where SIBs just shine. A community might work really hard and win a federal grant that covers, say, 40% of their project. They scrape together a local match for another 10%. But that still leaves a 50% gap. A SIB loan is tailor-made to fill that exact gap, bridging the difference and allowing the project to finally move forward.
So when you put all of these pieces together, the SIB's ultimate role becomes crystal clear. It's not just another lender, it's a financial accelerator. I absolutely love this quote from the source material because it just sums it all up perfectly. Grants are amazing, they fund the project, but the SIBs, they're what help you complete the entire financing structure.
And really, that's the whole point. That's the main takeaway. The entire purpose of this structure. The low interest rates, the higher federal share, the lower barriers, it's all designed to accelerate getting stuff built. It's about turning those plans that have been sitting on a shelf into real pavement, real bridges, and real transit systems that people desperately need.
So, we'll leave you with this question to chew on. Now that you know how this tool works, what's that one vital project in your community that's been stuck in that funding limbo? Could a TIFIA capitalized SIB be the key that finally unlocks it?